I'm a very frustrated organizer of translation activities, extremely frustrated, yeah. So every time I start something, it comes off and dies out, you know. I think I want to do more and more, and it doesn't happen the way I would want it to happen. But maybe I was too immature or premature to do that. Because I remember, yeah, before, yeah, maybe, yeah. Like a prophet, yeah, I believe so. Because about 20 years ago, I got into this whole domain of translation in a very big way. And I owe it to somebody like Geeta Dharmarajan to get me impassionedly involved in that. And then, of course, she moved away for a little while and now totally, and I was stranded. And I tried to sort of build up. I'm not an institution maker, so that's my problem. But yeah, I have been actively involved in it. And I think all of us who are actively involved in translation, even if you are not into the act of translation, I think it's very pertinent to be really dealing with questions that come up while translating, and not take it for granted in a very, very romantic way, saying, oh, if I love to translate, I will translate, and that's it. I don't need to know anything more about it. So that has been our problem in this culture. We haven't really academically and even otherwise engaged with the act of translation. We haven't theorized enough. There is a need for theory also. There is a need for theory to be built up alongside the act of translation, even if it is to achieve freedom of expression. Freedom with a responsibility. Freedom doesn't mean licentiousness. It doesn't mean a hedonistic kind of a foray into, playing with words. So even if it is adaptation, translation as adaptation, it has to be avowedly an adaptation.
The various stops on the way of producing your work, which is what I have done today. And I'd like to begin with the title that I've chosen, Translation Culture, which are two events which we always think of as together. And then the third, the freedom of expression. It's very deliberately there. The reason for that is, as I said, a personal experience. We were in Cyprus for a conference on intersemiosis at the University of Cyprus. And Professor Massimo Leone from the University of Turin was addressing the audience on Skype. And at one point during his talk, he made a very interesting point. At least, perhaps he didn't think it would be so polemical, but I don't know. It of course is full of polemics. And that was the fact that he said, he's a professor of theology, or he's working with theological studies at Turin. And he said that, what would you do today if you were to translate Dante, Divine Comedy, and the final chapter, Purgatorio, which is hell, in which the poet meets the Prophet of Islam. And the whole section is a dialogue or an expatiation of why Muhammad is there, why the Prophet is there. And it is, you can imagine, a sort of hate speech, writing in the perspective of the Crusades, with the hostility between Christianity and Islam. Dante had reasons, perhaps literary, cultural, and otherwise religious, of putting the Prophet of Islam there. Now the problem that was posited by Massimo Leone is, what do we do with this if we have to translate it? I thought it was very interesting. I was part of the audience. And he said that, I don't know how to resolve this problem, but we need to think about it. These are ongoing situations of conflict. And what do we do? And so maybe we can drop that section, or we can rethink it, or we do not take it up for translation. He gives several alternatives, all of which I do not remember right now. But what was interesting was, after he finished saying this, and he said that the Pope, he says, I can only resolve it by, then I asked him the question, I asked him a question. I said, I am surprised, actually taken aback, that in Western liberal democracies, which predicate themselves on the freedom of expression being an absolute value, including the right to expression, including the right to offend as an absolute value.